There we go. All right. Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to open us up in a Fatiha and then we'll go into the presentation for today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amen. So good morning, and I welcome everyone back to the 9-Point Plan, a living document for thriving communities. This is our second episode, and I'm just going to briefly recap what our first episode covered. Again, I greet my brothers and sisters with the greetings of Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. My name is Omar Mohammed, and this series explores Imam Warith Deen Mohammed's vision for building communities that are rooted in faith, knowledge, and action. The last time we discussed how the masjid serves as our community anchor, where this is a place more than just prayer, where we offer prayer. It is the heartbeat of unity and service. And today we move to the next foundational topic, which is education. Because once a community is anchored and we have developed those anchoring institutions, we must grow beyond that. And that growth depends on what we plant in the next generation, what we cultivate in the next generation. So this episode is called Education as Infrastructure, Building Minds, Shaping Future. So I want to begin by our segment always honor the past, and then we move into the future, and then we move into action, or at least suggest actions that we all can undertake. So I want to open up with start this conversation with an ayat, well, actually a surah, because it covers the whole, this surah. But in Surah 96, ayats 1 through 5, Allah reminds us to read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot. Then he reminds us again to read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. So this really emphasizes this idea concept of the importance of education, and not only in cultivating the best example that we can live in this life, but also cultivating educational institutions for our future generations, so that we can, like the Imam has stated, that we begin to build in those young people, build in in the next generation of leaders, what we expect from them, our aspirations, and etc., so that they can carry the torch moving forward. And thinking about this 9-point plan that Imam Muhammad laid out for us, he often reminded us that revelation itself began with a command to learn. And he's referencing this, Surah 96, to observe, to reason, and to build cultivation through knowledge. He made education one of the core pillars of his 9-point plan, saying, and this comes from the Imam, we cannot have a strong community if we neglect the education of our children. The school is the womb of the new community. So he called for full-time schools. He called for full-time educational establishments that nurtured strong Islamic identity, preparing not only the adults, but preparing our young people to face the challenges of life in this country, right? In the United States, where we call home. And when we achieve that, we have global impact. And he also reminded us that we must do this, right? We must establish these full-time schools so that we build not only the intellect of our students, but also the confidence that they can carry forward into the world. So during the 1980s and the 1990s, this vision took shape through the establishment of the Islamic, educational system that we call the Muhammad School. We call, the W.D. Muhammad school system. We call the Claire Muhammad school system, where we meet, right? And I think we have examples across the country where these schools are meeting the academic excellence, right? They're promoting the academic excellence of what Imam Muhammad envisioned when he tasked us with establishing these educational systems. For Imam Muhammad, his ideal of knowledge was both a religious obligation and a civic responsibility. It was a form of worship as well as a foundation for freedom, right? He saw this as a liberating our community from many of the traps that we find, keep us spinning our wheels, keep us not working together, keep us, disjointed in our effort. So as we think about the past, we also must live in the present. So today, we can think of education the same way as an urban planner think about infrastructure, right? That's why this episode is called Educational Systems as an Infrastructure. So I'm an urban planner, so I'm always thinking through that lens, community development, approaches to challenges, always through that lens of how an urban planner would approach a particular challenge. So for us, when we think about education as an anchor institution in our community, we must look at it through the lens of it being an infrastructure, right? An institution that is required, one of the foundational pillars that is required for success of our community. So just like an urban planner will think about roads being the infrastructure needed to move goods in and out of a community, right? Our schools, we must think of our educational institutions as a infrastructure that moves minds, that moves the intellect, right? This is a concept that help us to think about how important the educational institutions and systems that we are required to establish as we're building a whole holistic community life. It is a system that moves minds. So Imam Muhammad's idea of education wasn't limited to the classroom. He saw it as a circular system of community life where they had interconnected pieces that when we're building community, we cannot exclude education as being part of that community development. That connecting generations, right? The older generations with the younger generations, our young adults with the youth. These are connections that we must make and keep and maintain and sustain. And also empowering leadership, right? And like I stated on my last episode, is that we should not be looking for the imam to always initiate these initiatives. There are other leaders in our communities that can step up into these roles, take on these roles, and lead the effort to establish these institutions in our communities, right? And I think that is one of our greatest challenges in our association, is that we expect for our imam to be the conduit for every initiative that moves out that the masjid is associated with, or the community development efforts. The imam needs to be out front, and we need to move away from those ideas and concepts, because we can overburden our religious leaders with these responsibilities, right? When there's other individuals that we can cultivate that leadership, aptitude, that leadership development abilities and skill sets. We naturally do not come into leadership, right? We grow into leadership. We learn the skill sets and the abilities that are necessary to cultivate leadership. So In doing that, we must also identify those individuals in our communities that have the potential to lead these particular efforts that are being laid out in the 9-point plan that the Imam has laid out clearly for us. So empowering those leaderships, right, in our community to be able to take what we are saying and move forward with it. So education is also a social infrastructure, as vital as housing, water, and economic infrastructure of a community. Education is also that social infrastructure that our community development depends on. Strong schools create stable neighborhoods. They reduce violence, support families, and prepare young people to lead. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said this: seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. Every Muslim. We must seek understanding and we must seek knowledge. And Imam Muhammad understood this hadith as a civic command, right? And an instruction given to us. He believed Muslims must be informed citizens, right? And when we think of ourselves as citizens of this country, we are scientists, we are teachers, we are thought leaders, and we're not in isolation, but we engage and advance the society. And today, that means building an educational ecosystem. You're going to hear me use that term a lot in these podcasts, where we're building out an ecosystem, not an isolated system that is independent of other foundational institutions and establishments, right? But we have to see the interconnectedness of everything that we are doing to build community life, or to establish the community development that Imam Muhammad envisioned for us. So we're not in isolation. We engage and we advance society, and we see the interconnectedness of the work that we do. So that means that we're building, when we're talking about establishing the education institutions that is necessary, we're building an educational ecosystem, from early childhood programs to vocational training to mentorship, apprenticeship, and of course, we cannot leave out leadership development. And this should be the core, right, educational curriculum that we embed in our educational ecosystems. That early childhood programs, right? Our young adult programs, our vocational training for our young people, our young adults that are transitioning to the workforce, mentorship, apprenticeship, and then, of course, leadership development. So I want to now move into the discussion about building our future and what our future, when we think about our educational development, what our future can hold. And we have examples around the country that it definitely we can lift up and use as models to be able to help facilitate what some of our communities are missing. Right, we have areas of within our associations that have established strong educational institutions and establishments. Then we have other areas, right, that are struggling to establish that. But when we look as a whole, right, when one element of our community is struggling, it weighs down the whole community. So we have to see this as a holistic ecosystem. So where this is working very well in one part of the country, we need to be having conversations about what is working well, what are best practices that we can glean from those institutions, and then model those in the areas where these institutions are not at the level that they need to be. So building towards the future. if we see our masjid, right, and in the first episode, we presented that our masjids are anchors for our community, and that is an important aspect of this conversation, seeing our masjids as anchors. And if we believe that our masjids are anchors in our communities, education is foundational for what we need to build. In Imam Muhammad's vision, schools were not just places of learning, they were places for shaping the future. Imagine every masjid serving as a community learning center, right? Last episode, we imagine our masjids being a community development center or a community development a corporation. Now for the future, we are envisioning or imagining our masjid serving as a community learning center, blending Quranic study with technology, the trades, and critical thinking. Imagine our youth being trained not only to get jobs, but to create them, using the foundation that we set up in our community learning centers. And we have great examples, right? We have examples of where this is working. But for areas that we need to build this, right? We need to imagine our youth being trained under this community learning center concept, where we're teaching them, where the Quran is the foundation of our technology, our trade curriculum, our critical thinking, and then our youth not only being trained in the trades or in the jobs that are available to them, but also we are cultivating that entrepreneur spirit in each one of them to go out and create. Imagine if our schools taught sustainability, entrepreneurship, and civic engagement, all through the lens of the Quran. Imagine what environment we can shape. Imagine the impact that our young people will have on the global society versus the global society working on us. But when we cultivate that type of institution that is in every community that is part of our association, imagine the impact. Imagine the thought leadership that can come out of that type of community learning, that type of initiative. That's what it means to build thriving communities. Communities that learn, that teach, that innovate, not only for what is in the present, but for generations that come after. When we think of our community, we need to think, what are the elements that will make us thriving communities? Not just surviving, not just existing, but we are thriving and having significant impact in the communities that we are part of. So I'm going to move now into a conversation around action steps that we can take. Here's how we live out what we are presenting today, this week, right? Some of this we can lift up this week. Imam Bia, Adam Bia, has a program where he is encouraging all of us to contribute to the Islamic educational institutions that exist in our association. So today, we can donate to that effort. that supports uh, our community establishing these educational institutions around the country, particularly for us who do not, when our communities do not have an education a structure in place. We can support a community that does. And Adam Bia's effort is just one effort to support the education institutions in our association. So that is one call to action that we can do today. The other call to action that we can do today, right, is that we can start looking at where opportunities exist for us to build these educational institutions at our masjids. Be it a strong end school, adult classes, youth classes, wherever we need to start, right? We can start. With technology today, we can establish these types of conversations and institutions online. We can pick up, find a young person in our community, in our masjid, that we can mentor and teach this young person, teach them skills, guide them towards a career path. Because many of our young people are getting caught in this loop of society of where they're being lost. And what we see is that we see less participation of our young people at our masjids. One, because they can't see themselves in the initiatives that we are promoting. So if I was a young person, I would not want to be involved in a community if my voice is not valued, if I don't see no one that looks like me, if I don't have anyone my age or even in my generation. So when we're talking about the challenges of attracting young people to our community, it starts first with what institutions are we establishing that attracts them? And it has to move beyond social, right? Although education, yes, is a social construct, but we have to cultivate in them, and we have to allow them to step up into leadership roles so that the work, the foundation that we are laying, that they can fully participate in that, the cultivation of our masjids as anchors in our community. And they have ideas and they have vision for what it means for our masjids to be anchors. And we need to listen. We not only need to listen to the young people and our youth, but we need to learn from them. And after we have listened and learned from our young people, then we must activate, right? We must move on some of the ideas and concepts that they bring to the table. Because when they can see that I spoke up about my concern, they heard my concern, and my concern showed up in an initiative that the masjid is supporting. That says a lot to a young person, that I am valued in this community, that I truly am seen as a member of the masjid of this association. So and the third one, like I said, is that we can create opportunities to build, right? We have to start somewhere. And I want to remind everyone that every time we help someone to learn, we're adding a new brick to our educational infrastructure, right? Of a just and faithful community. And in closing, I want to remind us of something that Allah reminds us of. Allah tells us in the Quran, Surah 58, Ayat 11, Allah will raise and rank those of you who believe and those who have been given knowledge. So that tells us that when we have an understanding, when we have knowledge, that it is incumbent, it's incumbent of us to share, to teach. And Imam Muhammad's plan, his 9-point plan, particularly for education, were really not only just education, but all the points of his 9-point plan to build a model community wasn't just about survival. It was about elevation. To build a thriving community, we must cultivate our minds that can think, that can lead, that can serve. So the Imam's 9-point plan is the elevation of our intellect that frees us from the burdens of this society, that we're creating our own. We're creating for self. We're developing institutions that support our way of life. So I want to close with this idea. Again, reminding us that our education institutions are foundational to our community development. It cannot be in isolation of everything that makes up a community. But it's the interconnectedness of everything that supports our life, including our education, is foundational to that. I give you the greetings of Assalamu Alaikum. And remember, we are not just honoring the past, we are building the future. And I hope that we all can see it. Assalamu Alaikum. I'm open up for questions. And I do see Brother Michael, you have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes. Assalamu alaikum to you and to the audience. Thank you for this presentation, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it. In strategic planning, what do you see in terms of the obstacles, barriers, and resistance to this 9-point plan and to the valuable knowledge body that Imam Muhammad has left us? And there seems to be, in my estimation, something keeping us from really connecting. And I'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. This question came up last week during the episode talking about our masjids being anchor for community development. And for me, I think our challenge is not having a vision, right? Having a vision for what it means to build a model community. Not only having that vision, but understanding that this vision does not have to look the same across communities. It could be different. So how Atlanta approaches community development is going to be different than how Charleston or how Detroit or how New Jersey or any other area in this association approaches community development. So that is one. So having a vision for what it means to build community life, this model community that Imam Muhammad outlined for us in the 9-point plan. That is the first obstacle. The second obstacle is is that we tend to not unify, right, around a shared vision. I'm just going to use that loosely, a shared vision for our community. We do not have, and this is my opinion. This is my opinion. We fail sometimes to understand the true Shura Bainahum process, right? Shura does not mean that everyone in the masjid needs to be involved in a particular matter or a particular issue that is confronting the community. Shura means that we bring forth the best minds that have the understanding, that has the approach, that has the skill set, that has the ability to be able to approach that challenge, offer solutions, and then present those solutions to the community for debate and refinement, etc. But we get lost in trying to include everyone in that sure process, that bringing the experts to the table. We get caught up with everybody. Voices need to be, at the table at that point. And we
Yes.
get lost, right? We get lost in the aspect of conflict, differences of opinion. And
Yes.
we fall into disagreements
Yes.
because we cannot unify around a shared vision. And my approach would be we bring the best mind, the people with the abilities and the skill sets to develop a solution and present that solution to the community, then for further debate and refinement, but not before we have a vision or a strategy to move forward.
The last question.
I think we fall short.
One last question, Omar, in terms of how much of an effect does our socialization of rugged individualism? Because I heard you mention the shared vision, but we've been conditioned to think individualistic, especially African Americans. That's one of our dysfunctions. We were not designed to.
Yes, sir. I hear you, brother Michael. You cut off a little bit there. But yes, sir, I hear you. I heard your question in loud and clear. And brother Ishmael, I see you, and I will get to you next. Brother Michael,
Your thoughts.
yes, yes, sir. We tend to that ideal and concept of always wanting to promote our idea only, and that if no one gets behind my ideal, I can't support anything else, right? That kills us. Sure, Bainahum is a process to build consensus. Once you have the strategy in place that you can present to the whole community. Now, mind you, what I'm saying is not anything, it does not go against the process that the prophet has done, right? When he was going to war, he didn't get the blacksmith to come and give him war strategy. He got those folks that was experienced in war to be able to give him a strategy on an approach, and then brought it back to the community for full discussion, right? And Shura Bainahum moves towards consensus. And consensus means that I may not agree with everything, but I can live with the decision of the whole. And when we leave the conversation and when we leave the group, right, I'm going to 100% support the desire and the ambitions of the group. But yes, brother Michael, that kills us, that individualism, this idea around my way is the right way, my way is the only way. We dig our heels in and we do not want to accept differences of opinion. And it's also not only in the approaches of our challenges, we see this in our religious application of our rituals.
Yes.
Right? We see dogmatic stances that people take and have no flexibility that these rituals can be expressed in many different ways. And these are the things that we tend to argue the most about and cause a lot of division in our community around. Our young people watch us do this, and they do not want to be a part of it. All right. So, Brother Mike, I hope I answered your question. But I'm going to move to Brother Ishmael. I saw his hand. His hand was raised for a minute here. Brother Ishmael?
Yes, thank you, brother, for this show. I really appreciate this show. And I'm looking forward to future shows, inshallah. My question is, you talked about consensus and a shared vision. In your opinion, how are we to get this consensus and a shared vision if people have an understanding that leadership is local?
Yeah.
And we're not having a consensus on the national level down to the state level down to the local level. That's been put out there so much. Leadership is local. And people have different understandings of that. So what is your opinion on that?
Yes, sir. I think that is definitely a challenge for our community. I think that there is some truth in leadership is local, right? There is some truth in that. But I do think that there is a need for leadership to have regional conversations, national conversations that trickle down to the local leadership, right? Like I said, there's interconnectedness, and we cannot be isolation. We cannot be isolated from this association and the leadership of guidance that was given to us in this association. I think that there are attempts in the community to have regional leadership at the leadership guidance that is given at the regional level and the national level, right? Where we differ, and this is where a lot of misalignment is happening, is where our understanding of the guidance that Imam Muhammad has given us when it came to national leadership. I think that is a challenge for us. My vision is I would like to see our leaders come together first locally, right? And get on the same page, have the same vision about what we can do at the local level. Then move up to a regional structure. And then naturally, I think these regional structures will cultivate a national organization, right? I think every association needs national structure, and that's how I'm referring to it: a national structure, a regional structure that influence the local leadership.
And one follow-up question. Thank you for that. Once we get that national structure, if it's multiple people in that structure, shouldn't they appoint a leader?
I wouldn't necessarily say that they alone are responsible for appointing a leader, right? Because I think where we're gonna have to start, Brother Ishmael, is at the local level with a vision of what a regional leadership structure looks like. Then that regional structure needs to, I think the national organization needs to naturally come out of that regional structure. And the reason I say that, Ishmael, is that when it comes organically out of that process, people are more likely to support. When an organization pops up and say we're a national organization and we're going to represent this association, there's going to be some resistance to that. So for me, I think an approach can be start local, grow out of that local leadership, the collective leadership at the local level, a regional structure. Then out of that regional structure is a national structure that then can provide guidance right down. I think that is the only way that we're going to get support, holistic support from our community versus other organizations establishing themselves and then announcing that we are going to provide the national leadership for the association. I think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of pushback on that. And I think we see that happening now.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Organizations have formed themselves, yes, and have different levels of support, but do not have broad support because I think we skip some steps. And again, that's my opinion.
Thank you. I value that opinion, Brother Omar. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sister Martha, you on mute, Sister Martha.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Yes, and I'm thankful to have lived through to understand what you just now explained, and that is, and this is why CWSC explains to everyone, try to anyway, that we're providing avenues whereby Shura, understanding of Shura takes place, not that we are we're nationally operating, but not a national spokesman organization for others. And the work is specifically, we declare to work locally because of the autonomy that the Imam explained to every masajid, membership, whatever, wherever we are, so that autonomy doesn't mean separately or individually.
Yes,
it means that you take care of your business locally and you connect and affiliate, work through and with other organized bodies. So what CWSC will put on the table is, what we have put on the table through a lot of consultation, is to identify your area where you are and what is the parameter that you're operating in, and are we truly aware of everything that's operating there and working as like a side agent with the city administration. So I'll stop right there because there are so many pieces to it, but to definitely see the impact of what you explained educationally, then we can appropriately discuss national concerns and education, economics, governance, and socioculture.
That is correct.
Alhamdulillah.
We must have that, and again, the way that I designed this podcast is to view what Imam Muhammad has left us through the lens of an urban planner and how we approach challenges in communities. And when we are seeking solutions to those challenges, we never go towards a challenge saying that we have a solution already in mind. We educate ourselves about the context, the fabric, the ambitions of an area, and you use that as building blocks to co-design, right, with whatever area you're working in, to co-design that solution. And that is what I am suggesting with this podcast, that we start approaching the community development challenges in our community through an urban developer, urban planner lens, right? This is the concept of this whole podcast, is looking at the 9-point plan through an urban design concept. And inshallah, future episodes are going to move into strategy development. How can these are just foundational conversations, right? Each episode is going to establish each one of the 9 points. And then future episodes are going to go into how do we develop strategy around these key concepts and ideas that will be coming out of the episode. How do we envision our masjid being an anchor institution? or a community development corporation? What does it mean to be a community development corporation? And what are those things that we need, right? How do we protect our community, our masjid, from being taken over, right? We're seeing that challenge in our community. So, inshallah, that's how I conceived this 9-point plan that the Imam left us. And again, I just want to state this, and Brother Michael, I see you. I just want to state this. The 9-point plan, you cannot find this in one document. It is a series of conversations, lectures, information that the Imam has shared with us over his years of being the leader of our community. And these are topics that the Imam have discussed, and strategies that he has laid out for us. So, like I said, this is my approach to the 9-point plan. Other people will have different approaches and different understanding of how to implement these ideas and concepts, and we should welcome those ideas because for me, I see opportunity. I see a lot of opportunity for our community if we can implement the 9-point plan as the Imam has outlined and laid out for us. Yes, sir, Brother Michael.
Yes, sir.
Brother Michael, I don't know if you are speaking, but we can't hear you, sir.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
The Imam Muhammad, told us that urging our souls for being responsible for community life, then, shouldn't we, like, for instance, he not only appreciated the Focolare movement for the Christ love principle that they were supporting, but he also looked at and admired their leadership structure. And Brother Ishmael on another program, another Zoom call, research that structure, and I invite others to do the same. When you research the Focolare structure, you'll see that it not only deals with autonomy, but it also deals with what you're suggesting in terms of a broader framework. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Brother Ishmael, I will love to learn more about that leadership structure. And since you have done the research, I would love to have you, a guest, part of this podcast to discuss that leadership structure that you researched.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. I'm working right now, but I can send you the information most definitely.
Yes, sir.
So if you have your contact information, I most definitely will be in contact with each other.
Yes, sir. Definitely. Okay, I don't see any other questions or hands up. Okay, yes, Brother Kareem.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Praise the
Walaikum
Lord.
assalam.
I believe we can construct buildings. We can construct buildings. Matter of fact, the masjid is a building, but our youth are not there. We must be aware of what have them. Something has them. There's an influence that they are in. There's an environment that they are into. Now, Imam Muhammad introduced language. He said the micro and the macro. Micro is small. Macro is larger. So we know that the macro, how can I put it? Everybody is connected through their phones and everything with the social media. That is the macro. That's the loud microphone. So we must, I must be aware of the macro message that they are receiving. I must be aware of how to relate to that, even how to connect with what has them, the macro message, that has them. Uh, and how can I put it? Yeah, if they are aware and I'm aware of the environment that's holding them, I have to have language and a mindset that don't always oppose the macro, but how to implement value into the macro. Uh, you know, they how can I put it? Yeah, be able to speak in the language, praise be to Allah, that they speak. I'm not talking about curse words, but being aware of the environment that they are in and that you are aware of that and you're able to speak through, praise be to Allah, through the macro, because you have entered that yourself. You must be aware of that, and what you are coming, inshallah, to extract them from the Lord's macro, and develop ways that you, how can I say, that you are involved, or you hear what have them, uh, and be able to connect with that. Like there are positive elements in the macro message. Many of us aren't even aware of who is positive in that macro message. Mm. We look down on their choice of music, their choice of clothing, and all of that. But we are not there. How can I put? We're not there. We are not there. So being able to connect with the macro message and know where they are, and be able to speak to them according to the macro message, that will attract them into. If I'm talking to someone that is young, and I mention Kendrick Lamar, or I mention Drake, I mention those personalities that are in that macro message, they see a kinship with me then. Oh, oh, Karima, I didn't know that you was aware. Well, I am. And, so I think that is what we must become aware of. Go where they are. Don't go with a total negative, not a total negative. There are some positives in the macro. And they hear that, but are we supporting the positive coming through the huge message? Or are we still just in our micro, using our microphones, quoting Hadith and Quran? That which is essential, but you have to be able to fish, go fishing, go fishing, be aware of what has them, and be able to speak in that environment, not in a total negative way, not in a total negative way. So something has them, and we know it is the macro, the big microphone, the huge microphone, and we have a microphone.
Yes, sir. I love that approach
Yes,
of finding influencers.
Yes,
that's
sir.
basically what you're saying, finding influencers that they can connect with. I love that approach.
Yes, and not that, well, yeah, influencers are important. Praise be to Allah. They're positive influencers. So anyway, I'll just stop right there. But there is the real challenge is the microphone in competition with the macrophone.
Mm. Yes,
And
sir.
if we can speak in their, how can I put, in their world, in their environment, words make people. Mm. Words create environments. But to be totally objectionable of the macrophone, that won't do.
Yes, sir.
I'll
Appreciate
stop.
you. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
We appreciate you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Yeah, sister, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Deepita. I hope I
Yes, sir.
said that correct. Okay.
The free thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum to you, brother Omar.
Walaikum assalam.
The AM 360 Zoom listenership. I want to say alhamdulillah for blessing me to be here this morning, because I tell you, I woke up thinking it was Tuesday morning. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, and I'm waiting on my program. Come on in. I seen you come on. I'm like, so what's going on here? You know, it's just a week. And I looked at it, it was Wednesday morning, you know. So alhamdulillah, I didn't get the name of the program. And I'd like to get that.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
then also, when you were mentioning in your presentation in terms of local leadership and how we gonna, bring that together, I am certainly looking forward to hearing that plan in doing that, because it's been an issue forever in my community, and I would like to be a part of us seeing how we can actually pull us together, because we have about maybe 5 or 6 little in the separate entities, separate places here in this local community. I'm like, why? But inshallah, I'm looking forward to that. And I enjoyed your presentation much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sister.
And a
Appreciate
part
you as well.
of your presentation weekly, inshallah.
Inshallah. And the name of this podcast is a 9-point plan, a living document for thriving communities. That is the name of the podcast. So I don't see. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I don't see any other hands or questions in the chat or anything. So I'm going to actually, it's 9 o'clock. So we're right on time. So I'm going to close out with giving everyone the greetings again. Assalamu alaikum. And I am looking forward to next week's segment that is going to cover economic independence, the energy of community sustainability. So I'm looking forward to presenting that information and then having a robust conversation afterwards. So I greet all of you with the peace that only Allah can give. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.